And the hearing loss is something that doesn't get discussed much with autism. I met a few families that their kids end up having a hearing loss. And with both my kids, their hearing loss does not fit any typical profile of a hearing loss. Audiologists in the state have scoured the country looking for somebody else or anyone knowing of a hearing loss like my kids, and the only thing they can think of is from vaccine damage because their hair cells are laying flat completely. And
yeah, and I stumped audiologists for years, and I would have to get tested every year to see whether it would change, and it was stable, and it's been stable, and that's unheard of in hearing loss.
So tell everyone who you are. Comments. This is live on Periscope, and this is Anu who's working on this on HD. This is all people that are just lovely. This is us. Everybody's been hurt or damaged. So lots of people telling you you're beautiful. Right. So yes, tell us who you are. What's your name?
My name is Laura Spurl.
And you are
Sarah Spurl, Laura's mom.
Mother. Okay. It's nice that you're both here together. So we're talking about vaccine injury, obviously. So we were just going back to, I asked if she could give me one line that would summarise up what vaccines have done to her, and it was a silly thing for me to do because it got you very emotional before we'd even started. I won't do that again.
No,
It's
that's
the first time
totally
I've ever
fine.
done that to someone, so I'm not going to do that again.
It's good because I need to release
So
it,
we just,
you know.
yeah.
Time.
I mean, it's painful. So anyway, let's hear from you both and of what happened.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously know better from the parent aspect of I had the full schedule from birth and reacted to the Tdap and MMR. And
First reaction was at 2 months, and I was told that I was a worrisome first-time mother, and I need to stop looking for problems and just enjoy my daughter. She was beautiful. Then when it was time to do the second round, I kept questioning it, and they gave her all the shots, and then I called every hour for a day, 24 hours, and said, is this enough of a high-pitched scream? Is this enough? And they're like, she reacted. She's having a reaction. We won't give her it anymore.
So her reaction was the DTaP high-pitched scream that we hear the whole time.
Arching her back, right.
projectile vomiting.
The fever, going listless. The hip to the knee was completely huge and swollen. That didn't go down for days. And then she regressed.
So when they said, yeah, she's reacting, did they say no more vaccines for this baby now?
Right.
So when did she have her next round then?
When we switched doctors. So, they
And why
didn't believe
did you
it.
do that? You moved.
We moved.
And what did they say?
They didn't believe it. Yeah.
See, they are people. If you move, think yourself lucky. You don't sign on to any doctor whatsoever. You don't need one.
Right.
All they do is just damage. So go on, carry on. Unless you're ill, of course. Then it's
Right.
up to you what you do.
Right. So I was diagnosed with the classic infantile autism from the get-go, and I'm hard of hearing in both ears, and that has been since birth. I feel like as a person throughout my life, yes, I've had a lot of difficulties, and I exhibited all of the classic symptoms and signs of autism, and I was just telling my boyfriend the other day that I feel like had I not had the therapies, the barrage of therapies that I had growing up, that luckily my mom was just brilliant to think of to do to give me more opportunities to thrive, I would still be very much stuck in that
Nonverbal, head banging mode.
So when you changed paediatricians, why did they start vaccinating you? You told them you'd had a reaction to the vaccines. Why? What happened? What did they say?
It's hard to remember that far back. I had 3 kids when we moved to Wisconsin, and my oldest and youngest had vaccine reactions, and a lot was going on with the move, and it was very stressful, and I think we just did one more round, and then I never did it again.
And so
after
those
that.
are the ones that were tipped, and you don't know what those vaccines were.
Yeah, And I have the dates and that, and MMR was in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're
Twice.
30 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you had a vaccine when you were an adult as well, didn't you? Didn't you have a DTaP with your dad?
Yeah. Yeah. February 2012, I went for a routine physical with my PCP doctor, and she noticed that I was, past the 10-year mark for tetanus, and suggested I get the tetanus booster. And that made me uneasy, so I asked her a lot of questions, like trying to get the validity of, okay, is it really worth it? I reacted a lot to them when I was a kid, and she assured me that it was just the tetanus booster, just the tetanus part only. So I had the shot anyways, went with it, 26 at the time, on my own in Milwaukee. And a few days later, I was in a college class at UW Milwaukee. We were sitting at my desk, and we were taking notes, because it was one of those classes where the teacher was just talking the whole time. And I could feel like my body was starting to just shut down in a way. And I pretty much had a full body paralysis, and I couldn't move. And it was an hour-and-a-half class, and I could feel everything set in where it wouldn't move at all, any of the muscles. Couldn't move my head. I could move my eyes only and swallow. And I just stayed rowed to the position that I was in. And so the class gets done, everybody's getting up and leaving, and nobody really noticed until finally, like, one kid that had went last kind of stopped and looked at me like, why is she still sitting there? And tapped me on the shoulder and realized that I wasn't moving and that I wasn't responding. And so they got the teacher, had to call an ambulance. Paramedics came, they did the blood, vitamin, everything, testing that they could on site, everything came back normal. And so they took me to the ER, took 3 men to move me out of the chair and basically carry me through the hall in the building to the ambulance. Went to the ER, of course everything came back completely normal. With that, at home at other times it felt like my brain was on fire and that it was melting. I had a fever. I literally felt like I was losing brain cells at a rapid rate in some way, and it was hard to breathe. I felt like the perception of time and space was muddled up, so there was a lot of those different effects that were going on. I went to go see doctors about it, and of course they just reassured me, well, everything turns up normal in the exams and the blood test. I had multiple episodes. I called them episodes, more frequent in the beginning, and went to see a doctor about it. They couldn't find anything. They referred me to a neurologist. They couldn't find anything. They did an MRI and a CAT scan. There's nothing that showed up there. Referred me to, I think, a psychologist who told me that it was basically just...
Go to psychiatry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me guess, in your head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So...
And then we were videotaping them on the phone.
Because these episodes would last for an hour and a half, 2 hours, where I couldn't move.
You can't move or speak.
And different temperature zones in my body,
Yeah, really boiling hot
reaction.
one spot, freezing cold, a couple inches away, and then
can
medical people wouldn't know what to do with the video, and
Right.
so they'd kind of do what Western medicine people do and just walked away.
Yeah. So that's been my most recent and frustrating experience.
So how did you get from being diagnosed as autistic, with the issues that go with that, to your such,
Yeah.
how?
I know.
The big multi-million-dollar question.
Part of it is Mom's regimen of just barrage me with different therapies, vision therapy.
biomedical ones, or just
Oh,
Anything and everything I learned about. If I looked at it and thought it wouldn't hurt my children, we were doing it. And I was quickly went out in the forefront through the Autism Society, became the executive director of Wisconsin, and I was
the Autism Society of America.
yeah. And so then I was going to the national conferences, and I first met Andy
I
Wakefield,
went
and he
to those
discovered the MR.
conferences and I stopped going to them because I didn't. There wasn't much biomedical intervention. There was all like hard therapies and you were born that way stuff going. I sort of it's not my child.
When we'd have stuff in Wisconsin, we were bringing the biomedical aspects.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. And then I was just all over it. It made sense to me. I have an early childhood background. I saw that my kids were very smart, and I wasn't going to accept that they didn't talk. Because when speech therapists said that there was no reason they couldn't talk, that everything was there mechanically, I'm like, well, they're going to talk. So I bombarded them with speech. Like with my daughter being the oldest, it was 3 hours a week with a speech therapist, an hour per time. And then the rest of the time at home, literally, I bombarded her with speech therapy. And then we taught sign language, and from there, then I started pulling sign away to force her to talk. And you name it, we did vision therapy and OT with sensory integration. I bankrupted the family, literally.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah, intensive in-home, whatever. And I saw it all it was a little bit of a difference, but it made a difference.
So how do you feel now, age 30? Have you got any pain? Have you got any residue from these vaccine injuries still with you?
I do. I do still get residual episodes now and again. There's no rhyme or reason to why they pop up. I can't find a trigger that sets it off. And then whenever I do feel anything, I guess, residual, actually in the body, it's somewhere in the brain, in the front right area. It just feels more bruised, and it will actually inflame up at times and feel like it's burning and on fire. And then sometimes in the back of the head, especially when there's a lot more going on or a lot more stress, it feels like it just, like an electrical storm, it doesn't want to communicate or do anything, and then it just sort of shut down. And being able to do as much as I do on a day-to-day basis to be
What do you do? Do
presenting
you work?
human. Yes. I work for a nonprofit that serves at-risk youth, and I specifically work with truancy kids that have missed enough school that they had to go to truancy court.
That's wonderful.
And I mentor them one-on-one in the schools.
Wonderful work.
And then the other half the time, I do simple accounting and billing for a very small business in our hometown. So.
And then one other thing.
And I'm trying to start my own business. I'm trying to be health and wellness coach to help teach others about going back to our roots, listening to our bodies, and making changes of finding out who you are, where you come from. Just
That food makes a big difference.
So
Food
you
makes
still
a
have the diagnosis of autism?
oh yeah.
Oh,
Right,
there's
so-
two sides to Laura. She knows how to present very well in public. And then there's the at-home side.
Yeah.
So as a person, age 30, with autism, do you believe the vaccines caused your autism?
I believe, considering when I, had gotten them and when I was diagnosed, I don't have doubt in my mind that that's what caused my autism. Because I've done research on my own too, and backgrounds of different theories.
Well, you should be a spokesperson for that, because people like Autism Speaks and sometimes Autism Society of America, are you still working for them? Do you still work
No,
for them?
gosh, no, long time.
They
Left.
wouldn't have had you as a speaker at any of their things, but we, the people here, we would love you to speak out, because you speak so well and you tell a story so well, and we're not represented. So what's happened to all of our children is not represented, because most of our children aren't able to speak, or if they can speak, they're just not able to do what you're doing.
Right.
So you really should think about that.
Right.
I've always wanted to do something like that because I knew I had a unique perspective of part of the reason why I present so well is because I've also pushed myself because I wanted to be so much normal, but I pushed myself. I'm just that type of, I guess, type A-ish person where I reach a goal and, okay, now what's the next? I always stretch my comfort zone a little bit. I like, as much as I like comfort, I'm very much a dichotomy person. That as much as I like my stability and my routine and, okay, at this time I'm going to do this thing, I also like seeing what else I am capable of doing. And I realized with having the vaccine reaction a few years ago that I'm able to feel and go into my body and know exactly why I have an autism reaction to something, like why I can't go out in public and do something one day and what's going on and causing that reaction. And I realized just how many thousands of people with autism, kids and adults, are the same way, but they can't articulate why or understand why. And that was why I got my degree in psychology, because I'm just fascinated by how the mind works and how that can just relate to everything.
Yeah, well, fantastic. Thank you. And you've been through a pretty horrific time. Was it painful for you as a mother to watch all this?
It wasn't painful going through it because I met some other mothers that was like me with our nose to the grindstone. We saw that our kids weren't developing normally, and we saw that they were extremely intelligent, and we weren't going to let anything stop us from having them develop to their potential. And so I was just busy. Laura was born in '86, so I was very busy looking for things and trying to learn about it and discover it. So going to conferences and coming home and then finding local providers, and if not, creating it myself in the home and turning our living room into a sensory integration gym or whatever I could do, because I felt that was my role as my mother, to do as much as I could for my kids. That's what I owed them, so that they could have a life as unencumbered as they could. If people got in my way, at that time I was much more patient. I had a pediatrician that wouldn't work with anybody except me, and other parents would kind of not be happy with me about it. So I asked her one time after she retired, and she said, "Sarah, you always did your research and you presented it so well to me, and it was flawless." She goes, "I couldn't say no to you. I knew when you requested to have something improved that I didn't have to do the work. You did it for me." She goes, "Everybody else just demanded it and wouldn't back it up and tell me why." Because at this time, in the 90s, everything was cutting edges, if you remember, and nothing was proven, and it was all snake oil. And so that just fed me and kept me going, and they kind of kept me going.
And would you ever vaccinate yourself?
No, never.
No, you don't.
Now, and the thing that tripped me up was the second one that was born had no reactions. So then I thought, okay, it was a fluke. And then when the third one reacted, that's when I really became staunch and absolutely became more of a tiger.